Chosen. They're scheduled doing this every Wednesday at 6:30. And so we're going to just go ahead and get started here tonight. We've taken quite a long hiatus, but not because we wanted to be gone. It was just because they didn't have any episodes released. And we'll talk more about that in just a moment. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and get started here. So we'll be right back. All right, so right now I have Janice here with me. Let me see if I can bring you in, Janice. There we go. Hello, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm just going to go ahead and remove some of these other cameras, and maybe if some of the other folks come in and join us, we will add those in. But in the meantime, I think I just might make your camera a little bit larger. How's that sound?
Okay.
Why not? So how about for you? How about with respect to this whole thing about The Chosen? Have you missed not seeing it for
Oh, yeah.
as long as we have? What do you what are your general thoughts about it? Why do you like this season? I mean, not this season, but why do you like this show?
I just really like being able to see the emotion and kind of like more of the story. That whole bit.
Yeah, we were talking about that the other day. While I make your image a little bit larger here, it's all Janice all the time right there. But
I can put my glasses on now.
you say you need to. Oh, let's see. Lorene is asking me how do I join in, and Lorene, I sent you a link, a text message.
It's in the text.
Yeah, so if you can just join that. And also, I just want to say that Bonnie is watching, and so that's great. I'm glad, Bonnie, that you're able to join us. But yeah, so Janice, settle down. What's the deal?
I'm trying to make me in the center, but I can't.
Now that's Lorene. Let me go ahead and bring her in. Let me get a scene ready to go for her. Let me see where I can put her. I'm going to put her right here.
Make my picture smaller.
I will. You know what? You can't be on the show and be the director too. Oops, sorry, I just took you off. So that's one of the rules that I have. Oh, that's Nikki too. And so she's joining us. Let me go ahead and pop Nikki in. And there she is. And then Lorene is joining. And let me get Lorene.
There she is.
There she is. There you go. So, now let me go ahead and make you smaller, Janice.
No, make me smaller.
So, hello, ladies, and I'm glad that you're able to join us tonight too. So, I'm going to ask you guys the same question that I asked Janice. Is that first of all, have you missed the shows, the shows themselves, and why are you attracted to this series?
Go ahead, Lorene. You go first.
Well, I know all the stories. I've heard them and studied them all my life, but this just puts it all together in a package with a line, with the showing of the interpersonal relationships and how they all connected. It's just amazing to me. It just brought it to life.
Yeah.
Nikki, how about you?
I feel the same way. It just seems real to me. It makes
Mm-hmm.
Jesus seem like a real person that relates to people, that loves us through our faults, even though I knew that. But it just seems so tangible.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sometimes it takes like two sentences in the Bible that you read and you're like, oh, yeah, that happened. But then when you see it, it's just a whole different thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we've had this conversation many times before because I've heard a lot of detractors, and and that's fine. I mean, not everybody has to like the same things, but I've heard a lot of detractors of this series, and they say, well, it's not true to the Bible, and and anytime you're going to have any talk or any um, uh, you know um, narrative. I mean, unless you're just reading the Bible straight through, there's always going to be interpretation, and there's always going to be artistic license. There's also going to be a retelling of the story. That doesn't mean that your retelling of the story is false. It just means that you're selecting information. I do that all the time when I preach a sermon. Is that I don't preach everything in a text, um, because it would just bog down. You know, so but one of the things that I really like about it, because I've been studying the Bible a long time, and so I will watch an episode, and I can normally kind of figure out just where they're at in the scriptures by the theme that they're developing in the show. And then I'll go back and I'll read the text, and I'll see stuff there that I never saw before.
Yes.
And it was because the way that the Chosen portrayed that. Now we'll talk more about that in some upcoming episodes, and particularly things that I said, I'm going to look this up because this can't be right. And so go ahead.
It's kind of like your sermon series. Like when you preach on Sunday, we have a paper and we fill in the blanks.
Mm-hmm.
But you can read that paper and get a good lesson from it. But if you're there in person, hearing
Yeah.
all of the stuff in between, it just makes it so much better.
Yeah. 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 So I was watching, actually, in preparation for tonight's broadcast. There is and I can't remember what it's called, but they have a number of different video series. I'll see if I can post it, but it's a round table, and maybe you guys saw it, but it's a round table of Dallas Jenkins, and then this messianic Christian, a guy from Biola University, and a Catholic priest. And so then they talk about the various aspects of that show, and it really gives you a lot of insight. That stuff, I'm amazed that it seems like you could spend 10 lifetimes over studying the Bible and still find new stuff there, so, but
It's alive and active.
there you go. It is. It's amazing. So I have some questions for our discussion tonight. And first of all, ladies, thank you for joining us. That I was feeling all alone for a while, but now I feel so much better. It's those simple things that mean a lot. How about this? What emotions did this episode evoke in you as a viewer?
Anticipation for, because I know the stories. I know where it's going. I know the ending. I know the beginning. The beginning of all the ending. But it's just so fun to see it visually. I love
Yeah,
it.
it is. It is. So, Anyone else? Janice?
I don't remember which way to put my
No,
hand.
just go right up in front of your mouth like that. There you go.
Okay, I liked it. Like I think one of my favorite parts, maybe, was when Elizabeth and Mary got together and were talking, and how the
Mm-hmm.
baby leapt in her womb, and they were so happy for each other and everything, and there was so much anticipation and joy and all that kind of thing. And I also, it was a show that had really a lot of grief,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
to see how Jesus was so full of grief about John,
Mm-hmm.
and then how everybody, I mean, I'd imagine we would be the same way, if we were in
Yeah.
that situation, we would all be gathered around. Just unbelievable, that had happened.
Yeah. They do a real great job of juxtaposing the beginning with the end. And
Mhm.
and in this episode, they go to Mary and Elizabeth as they are expectant mothers, and they're like so many expectant mothers is that they are filled with hope and anticipation and excitement. And then of course we know how the trajectory of those two lives, how they unfolded, and just the level of sorrow. Now I'm sure Elizabeth never lived to see all of that, but with Mary, just the level of sorrow for both of those men, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I tried to be brave when I watch those episodes, but I find that my eyeballs sweat a lot. So,
I'm not crying. Are you crying?
yeah. So, okay, according to the Bible, when Mary visits Elizabeth, Elizabeth says, "You are blessed because you believed that the Lord would do what he said." And they kind of like, they paraphrase that in the narrative of the show. How hard is it for you to trust God when he promises something really big in your life, like his acceptance of you as his child? How about for you guys? Nikki?
I know it in my heart, but I don't in my head, but I don't always believe it in my heart. Like that
Mm-hmm.
is a huge thing that he accepts me, but I know me and I know my thoughts, and it's hard for me to believe, and I don't think I know that he's not lying, but it's still hard to believe
It
that
is.
he accepts me no matter what.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Yeah, that's an incredible statement you just made there, Nikki. Is that he loves you no matter what. And you can't do anything good to make God love you more, and you can't do anything bad to make God love you less, you know. And that and and so so obviously we have to walk in obedience to the Lord. But even walking in obedience to the Lord, as I said so many times in church, is not about walking in perfection. It is about managing your wrongdoing the right way. And Lorraine.
Yeah, that is exactly. I spent my whole life, my whole Christian life, because I came to the Lord quite young, and
Hmm.
I tried so hard. Like I tried so hard to be good and to not sin, falling short so much. But it wasn't until very late in my life when I realized, about 20 years ago or so, I realized that it was true that I'm his child and I don't have to keep trying. Now, does that mean I go back to, do I go back sinning and all that? No, that's not what it
Mm-mm.
means. But I don't have to try anymore. He is and I am, and that's it.
Yeah. That's funny. Even with our own kids, you stop and think about it. There's not a moment that I can think of in my children's lives where they had to try to be my child.
Exactly.
You know, and I don't think there's even in their lives consciously that it was ever crossed their minds, well, I have to try to be a part of this family. No, you're just a part of this family.
Yep.
So it is hard. And I'm kind of reading the Bible. It's weird because it really is. When you read the Bible with fresh eyes, and you can begin to see just the depths of God's riches and love and grace that He has extended to us by adopting us into His family. And there again, when you stop and think about it, He has adopted us. So that doesn't mean that that we did anything to earn it. That or we have some sort of natural birthright to this. Is that He made that choice? I want you. You know, that's hard. That's one of those hard things to grasp. So, in what way was Zechariah's life limited by his unbelief? How does unbelief often limit the lives of God's people? How was his life limited by his unbelief? Janice?
He couldn't speak
All right, he couldn't speak for a period of time. And
during the pregnancy, I suppose.
yeah, it's actually until the naming,
Mm-hmm.
that the Jewish rabbi, he said that that occurs at the bris. So when the male child is circumcised, that and he's named, and the naming of a child is a very significant thing. Kind of in our day and age, it's just, we just kind of like the sound of a particular name, and we go to that. So Val says he's unable to communicate. I see. Yeah, okay, there he is. I thought Val was trying to get on. It's a matter of interpretation, but Zechariah was unable to communicate, and so and then after the child was named, then he was able to communicate. How about unbelief? How does it limit our lives, Nikki?
I think it keeps us from knowing God fully, like it kind of separates us. Like,
Yeah.
I was thinking about Zechariah. Val and I were talking about it, and because he didn't believe what God could do with Elizabeth, can you imagine not being able to speak about something like that? Like, can you look at her? Did you look at her? And she's pregnant, and you'd want to tell the whole world, and then all of a sudden, you
Yeah.
can't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
That would be you'd want to, yell it from the mountaintops, but he
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess he had his little chalkboard, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lorene, what were you gonna say?
I was thinking about the whole unbelief part, and I think when there's unbelief, it grows. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of can get stuck in it. And I'm watching this happen to somebody that I love very much, and they're just stuck. They believe in
Mm-hmm.
like the dark side more than the light side, and they
Mm-hmm.
step into the light. Sounds so corny, and I don't mean it that way. It's just she's just stuck, and she
Yeah.
doesn't know how even to
Unstuck.
get out. Her
Yeah.
unbelief is, and her unbelief came like from very young, and then
Mm-hmm.
didn't right input, just stuck, yeah, just stuck,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then because it's like her unbelief is growing now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, what I like to remind myself of all the time is that God has access to people's hearts in ways that we don't. And
thank
so,
goodness.
yeah, and so He can reach our friends and loved ones. And, it's one of the things is that They may resist our arguments, but they cannot resist our prayers.
Mm-hmm.
You know. All right. So Herodias, the mother of Salome, or Salome, but I've always heard it Salome. You
Mm-hmm.
know. You know. And she's the current wife of Herod Antipas. So there's when you read the New Testament, the whole Herod thing gets to be very convoluted because there's 3 different Herods that are mentioned in the New Testament. This is not the Herod that killed the babies when Jesus was born. That's Herod the Great. Then what happened is that after Herod the Great died, he divided up his territory amongst his children. Now, Herod the Great had a number of wives, and so a lot of these guys were half brothers who were ruling the area. So then later on, there's another Herod that comes into the scene. But Herod Antipas is the current husband of Herodias. Now, Herodias was married to a guy by the name of Philip. Interestingly enough, Herod the Great had 2 sons who were named Philip. He wasn't, I guess, a creative dad, you know. Well, you know, Philip's a good name. Let's name this one Philip. So,
Like George Foreman.
yeah, exactly. He's Herod the Great is the George Foreman of the Bible. So, but Herod and Antipas, that he marries Herodias, even though she had no legitimate grounds for leaving her husband. And so John the Baptist calls out Herod for that, and of course sullies her name in the process. And so she holds a grudge against John the Baptist for condemning her sin. You can read that in Mark chapter 6, verses 19. Why are grudges so dangerous to our spirit? And before you answer that question, is that I was thinking about that. You know, that's the whole thing that fueled her was her grudge, you know. And then I was thinking about how many people that I know who hold grudges, but why are they so dangerous? Go ahead, Nikki.
Well, they definitely take us in a different direction than focusing on God. Like she was obsessed with it. And I think
Mm-hmm.
when people, that's all they think about is their
Yeah.
grudge and how they were hurt and revenge. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, you can, and I'll frame it this way: you can be offended by somebody for, because, and you could be offended by somebody and be in the right or be in the wrong. But it doesn't matter if you're in the right or in the wrong. If you nurse a grudge afterwards, it just destroys you. You know, Janice.
And no matter if you're in the right or the wrong, the grudge is always going to be how I can make them feel as bad or worse than they made me feel. You know, so it's not going to be a good thing. And I think the more that you think on those things, the worse it gets.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure.
The more evil you become.
Yeah. You know, we never solve evil by doing evil.
Right.
You know, so it says, Val says that we don't always think of the positive first. People hung up on grudges are and eye for an eye. Yeah. So, Lorraine, you had something?
Yeah, I had went doing it with one ladies, and we were trying to get her to it was a grief class, I think, and we were
Yeah.
trying to get to her grief. And so, we have them list their griefs.
Mm-hmm.
But this lady, she just got so off track. She wrote 4 front and back lined pages full of names of people that she had a grudge against.
Whoa.
It
Wow.
was, I have never seen a list like that. She knew the times and the days. She
Oh
even
my goodness.
Wow.
and she never could get it because she was so full of this blame. It becomes
Mm-hmm.
blame. They're
Mm-hmm.
this to me. And
Yeah.
I never untangled her. I didn't know how to untangle that. I mean, we started at the top, but we never got to the pages. It was crazy. It was so crazy. And I felt really that she remembered in such detail.
What a waste of
Crazy.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Serious,
Yeah.
serious.
Yeah. That's sad. You know. So um, according to the show, Judas has an entrepreneurial spirit. Is having such a spirit necessarily wrong? And when might it become a problem? So the show portrays Judas as a businessman, and he was a guy who, was thinking about how to move things forward, how to grow the ministry, how to make things happen. He probably would have been a good pastor.
The church treasurer.
Yeah. Go ahead, Nikki.
Well, when we were doing this study, to me, you have a very entrepreneurial spirit, but you're always asking for the Lord's guidance in which direction you should go.
Mm-hmm.
So you're always listening. And I think it can be a gift. I think it's wrong when you don't listen to God and you just want, like, his whole thing was what he wanted to do and how fast he
Mm-hmm.
wanted to go and what he wanted to happen. And he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't even considering Jesus's goals or which direction he wanted. It was all about his thoughts. Like when
Mm-hmm.
they were saying you're learned and not
Yeah.
wise.
Yeah. Yeah. Janice.
I don't think it was in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you start pocketing some of the money.
Yeah.
You're headed in the wrong direction.
Yeah. Yeah. Lorraine.
Well, I watched Shark Tank, and it's about a bunch of entrepreneurs, and they try to get investments. But what I
Yeah.
noticed, there's some entrepreneurs, they have great ideas, but they cannot hear anything other than their idea. They
Mm.
can't even hear an idea that might make things better or try a different direction. They think their way is the only way, and I think
Mm-hmm.
those kind of go off track.
Yeah. 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 One of the things too that, and I've been in ministry long enough to have had quite a few experiences along the way, and one of the things that, and I like this the way they portrayed Judas, to tell you the truth, is because probably and even when people were talking to him, is that he was convinced that he had the best interests of the ministry at heart.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, we're doing God's work here, and we need to fund it, and it's all about um, getting more people to hear and receive the message. So,
I mean,
Janice, say what?
had great ideas.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Janice.
what I was going to say. He was the idea man. He had all these
Mm-hmm.
ideas and everything. He just was running in a different direction than Jesus wanted to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I don't know how many of my ideas have always been where God wanted me to go, but ideas can be a blessing and a curse, and because sometimes it's not, the how many ideas you have. It's really about the follow through, and helping to nurture those ideas into something meaningful. So let's see. I gotta find. I think we're here. Okay, I think that's right. Maybe hang on one
I
moment.
think you skipped 6.
All right, thank you. So in the show, Z says to Judas, "You are learned, but you are not wise." What's the difference between learned and wise?
He doesn't apply what he's learned. He knows a lot of
Mm-hmm.
stuff, but he's not applying it.
Here's the best definition I've ever heard of it. Is that knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing that it doesn't belong in a fruit salad.
Good. It's a good.
Yeah. So, all right. Let's see. In the show, the show portrays Judas as having a hard time with Jesus not moving faster, and he thinks he knows how things should proceed. How difficult is it for you when God isn't working in your life according to your expectations?
I'm impatient.
Yeah, me too. You know, it's hard because, and there's so many things that we can conceive of that it is what we want is good, but God isn't doing what we want. Get with the program, God. Janice?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes along with the next question where you're asking, why do God's people suffer? Because, we think we have a plan that really is going to be good, and it, has all these wonderful reasons why we should be doing the way we're doing. But many times God just says no, and
Mm-hmm.
you feel like you're suffering, like I know we're not suffering like people in the past have suffered, but,
Yeah. Well, what I always tell people, you always feel the pebble in your own shoe. So,
right.
yeah. So, John the Baptist led a remarkable life, and the joy accompanying his birth is starkly contrasted with the nature of his death. Why do you think suffering is often the experience of God's people?
That is such a mystery because I don't really
Mm-hmm.
get it. I know it's true that suffering uh, uh, creates in us maybe a reliance on God, but it doesn't always, but it
Yeah.
can. It's one of those things I don't get. I just have to believe that God has a reason, even though I can't even fathom sometimes why he would let certain things happen, whatever. I mean, just
Yeah.
the whole Jews during the Hitler time. Why
Yeah.
in the world is that? How can that be a good thing? And yet, I mean, I don't know, but it's just one of those things I can never answer why we are allowed to suffer. I don't know. I know
Mm-hmm.
there's a reason, but
Mm-hmm.
you can't, like, I can't tell somebody who's suffering, oh, there's a reason God putting you through this. I'm not going to say that to them.
No. No,
Yeah,
unless you want to get punched.
very, yeah. So I don't even know. It's one of those things. I don't know. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know why.
Janice?
I think that a lot of the reason why we suffer is because of consequences of sin. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that because God gives us free will, that um, other people's sin can cause us to suffer a consequence of that sin.
Mm-hmm.
But
Of their
there's
sin.
other times,
Yeah.
but there's times when I really don't understand, like Lorene was saying, I just don't understand why one person suffers and, another doesn't. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
And even like even in the series, I don't remember if it was today or if it's because I've kind of watched ahead a little.
Yeah.
But I know that there's times when, even in the series, that Jesus is just saying, this is just the way it's going to be for this.
Yeah.
Well, even like in the past when he said to little James, I'm not going to heal you. He sees him healing the blind lady and different people, and he's like hopeful, I think, that Jesus is going to heal him.
Yeah, his turn's
And then
coming.
he
Yeah.
even tells him, I'm not going to.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Yeah.
seems you could he could have got really bitter and taken it as being, Jesus is hateful or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. In the show, John the Baptist says that he has never been to a wedding banquet, but I'm on my way to one. What was John talking about?
Well, it could have been two things, but I don't think it was the icky one. Where part of him attended.
Yeah.
Was it
Yeah.
the wedding between the bridegroom and the church? That's what I thought
Yeah.
he.
Yeah. And it's amazing. I mean, and I love this. I love the sense of hope with which he faced his own death.
Yes.
And that's a good lesson for each one of us. I mean, because Janice.
Well, and I think that he knew his purpose. He knew why he was born. He knew
Mm-hmm.
what he was supposed to do, and he realized that he had done it, and now it was time for Jesus to come.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sad. I mean, I can't. I'm reflecting on that episode. I mean, that particular scene, and it's just really sad. The whole situation, and it's kind of it's really representative of our world, because there's a deeper thread of significance that's going on with these characters who annoy the powers that be, John and Jesus. There's a deeper thread of significance that's going on with their storyline than there is with Herod and the Romans and Pilate and the Jews, and who thought that they were really what was important. So number 10, it says, what symbolic elements or imagery used in this episode that stood out to you? Go ahead, Lorraine.
I loved when when it's Z and Judas and they're washing clothes.
Yeah.
I was up because he was, showing them how to get this garment clean, and they're like beating it on the rock, dunking it under, and soaping it up, and then beating it on the rock. And really symbolic of that whole episode of how we are clean with the suffering and the
Mm-hmm.
but we get to be clean again. I don't know. I like that part.
Yeah, and it was interesting that Judas, there was still dirt in his garment.
Yeah.
That's what a little foreshadowing there.
Yeah.
A little dirt there.
Yeah. Janice?
I just don't believe that's the way women did the laundry. That clothes would have holes in them the first time you washed them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it makes you thankful for your speed queen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's so much that I'm thankful for, modern conveniences. So
Yeah.
I spent enough time in developing nations to, and there's a lot of wonderful things in developing nations, but doing laundry, or even preparing your meals, or even
Taking a shower with a bucket of water.
Yeah, disposing of waste and stuff like that. Yeah. Okay. Also, that it was. I love that scene where John the Baptist is laying his head on the chopping block, literally, and he looks out the window, and sees a lamb, and he says thank you. You know,
Yeah.
and he had a sense of gratitude, even though he's facing a horrible experience right in that moment. He finds the gratitude in it. You know,
That was a good scene.
it was,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I was watching another you know they have so many they have so many of these things that you could watch on each episode, but they interviewed the actors who Andrew, John the Baptist, and then Joanna, and they were all in one of these roundtable things. It's interesting. When I was thinking about being an actor, because it is a gift, because what they said about that scene is that it's just a green screen that he's interacting with. There's no, it's not like he's seeing anything out there. It's just this green screen. And
Hmm.
Joanna said that a lot of times what they have to do is that there's just a dot that they have to focus on and act in relationship to that dot.
Wow.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And then also, I was thinking about the whole thing with crying. That just okay. I know folks that could probably do one or two scenes crying, but they said that some of those it take like 20 takes. You know,
Wow.
yeah. And somebody would have to hit my toe with a hammer.
That would be howling.
Oh yeah. That's true.
The older I get, the faster I can cry.
Me
Yeah.
too.
There's nothing that really, you don't have to say too much at all to get Janice to cry. She can watch an episode of The Chosen or call the midwife.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
every episode.
Yeah, you know. So, all right. Finally, Jesus mourns the death of John. And although he had a full perspective on matters of heaven and earth, Jesus mourns. Why is that? Janice? Go ahead,
Go ahead.
Janice. All right,
You
one
go
of you.
ahead, Janice.
I think because he that's his human part,
Mm-hmm.
This is his cousin who he loves dearly. To know that he's suffering and all of this stuff, I think,
Mm-hmm.
same with, well, oh, never mind.
Yeah.
I was going to say somebody else.
Yeah. Janice has skipped ahead. Go ahead, Lorraine.
I was thinking about this is, why did mourn? And I was thinking, he's not immune to being a human being and knowing that is no
Right.
longer. And
Mm-hmm.
a friend that we recently lost, it's like we lost his presence. We know where he is. We know he's
Yeah.
better, but we miss his body, his
Mhm.
presence. We can't just call him up on the phone like we used to be able. Probably didn't, but we used to be able to say, "Oh, I'll just call so and so," and when he dies, that is it. Like for us, it's a separation, even though it's not a separation from God. I don't mean that,
Yeah.
but it's for us to not have that their presence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love it that Jesus he he has the full spectrum. He has the full spectrum of human experience without sin. And so obviously, and I know Christians who almost like made it a rule that when their loved one passed, it's going to be a celebration, and I think that is disingenuous from the standpoint that Lorena's talking. When my loved ones pass, that that it is a season of grief. You know, I
Well,
remember. Go ahead, Janice. You first, and then I'll say something.
okay, I think it. When someone you love dies, it breaks your heart because now these people, they've gone on their journey that you can't follow them on.
Yeah,
And so like Lorene was saying, they're good. They're going to be with God and they're going to have a whole new experience and everything. But you also are having a whole new experience of what it's like to be on this earth without them.
yeah, yeah. Your mom has talked about that a lot. You know, your dad has been gone for a long time now, and yeah, I I remember when both my mom and dad died on separate occasions. They didn't die together, but when they died, I remember telling Janice, "Boy, I'm glad that God only gave me two parents because I wouldn't want to have to go through this again." You know,
Yeah.
so but okay. Well, we're going to bring this particular study to a close. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining me tonight because it's always better with you than without you. And
It's good to be back with the
it
gang.
is with the
Yeah.
gang. And I'm not saying that just to butter you up. You know, you bring perspectives and you bring comments and I think just really enrich the whole experience. And Val says, and men, he's trying to get, he's trying to act like, um, you know, maybe next time, Val.
We just
But yeah, we do miss you. I miss you, Val. So, if for no other reason, is to at least bring a little bit less estrogen to the group. So, all right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this thing up here. Thanks again for joining us. And so you can find us. Facebook has changed. Facebook is always changing its rules. And we had a Discuss the Chosen group. But then what happened, not for us, but for everybody who has a group on Facebook, is that Facebook decided that you cannot live stream into those groups. Now there is a workaround to that, but it's really complicated, and I can do that, but I can't do that simultaneously and bring a live stream. So all of the live stream that we're going to do is going to start here and probably the simplest way to find it is on our Compass Facebook page. A page is different than a group for those folks who are Facebook nerds like me. But you can find the live stream on Compass Riverside on Facebook, or you can find it on Compass Church Riverside on YouTube, and that's another place to watch that. So, folks, thanks for joining us tonight, and I hope you'll be with us next week for another episode of Discuss the Chosen. Bye-bye for now.